I
Like,
also don't think he knows like what turfs really are though either.
and
Which
that's a huge problem. And so that's where we're saying these things, and it's not an attack on his intent, though I am disappointed in the amount of, like, if you're doing a whole comedy skit and a point, you're going to say, I'm a turf.
yeah.
I'm like a Twitch streamer that doesn't make 20 something million off of my thing. And I still feel responsibility enough that if I'm going to speak on something, I should know a little more deeply what it is, especially if I'm going to boldly say, I am this thing as like an edgy thing. And his audience is huge. Hey,
Howdy.
how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Sorry, I had to fix the. I still had your audio up on the stream.
No worries. Glad to have you on here. What got you started? Do you stream?
Yeah.
What got you started on streaming?
Video games.
Video
Mostly
games.
just video
What games do
games.
you
Yeah.
play?
Rocket League, League of Legends, and Rust are probably the most played right now. So all the like most toxic games.
What role do you play in League?
Support.
Aw, you play support what characters? What champions?
Resh, all the hookers.
Hell yeah.
I'm a
Okay, not
hooker main.
Blitzcrank. Fuck Blitzcrank.
Hey, we gotta play Blitzcrank for the memes though sometimes.
Okay, only for the memes and the fun games.
Yeah, just for the memes. Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah, no, I'm there for that. Thresh players though are.
Oh, I love. That's probably my main. Thresh and Braum. I really like Braum too.
Oh my god, Braum is one of the best.
He's
Braum
the people's
is,
champ.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah, no, I definitely feel
He's
you on
a
that.
he's a snuggler. You just gotta
Exactly.
hang out with him. Yeah.
And he's so like he's just everything about his character is 10 out of 10. I love Braum. And then playing with Braum players is just like, oh, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Welcome
It's definitely refreshing.
Mm-hmm. He for sure is. So I guess I'll start with, I went on to that panel and the primary topic I wanted to go on and talk about was the Dave Chappelle issue.
Yeah, me
and I was
too.
wondering, do you feel like you learned anything from being on the panel and having those conversations? Or
I don't know, just because it was hard to like get even like finish like a sentence and stuff. Sometimes it gets hard to like because it's a panel, everybody's trying to talk, and I get it, but I mean, okay, honestly, and I'm not even trying to like meme, I feel like I actually learned something from Dave Chappelle's special about trans community, and that's something that I was like trying to point out, was that I actually thought that the special was kind of like trans positive. In a way.
No, I think I felt that from you. And I tried to acknowledge it a few times, but I think when you're on those panels, a lot of people are very defensive.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons, like, you'll notice I'll go and I'll reference a lot of people by name. And sometimes people are doing that to take shots. I don't do those panels because I don't like arguing. I like having a conversation where we can reach understanding or at least learn something from each other. But, what do I expect when I show up to something like that, right? So what do you feel like you learned from Dave Chappelle in terms of the trans community?
So I thought something that was really powerful was like when he talked about, Daphne and the comedian, and how like they met, and then like, he needed an opener, and he's like, hey, I remember that, that trans woman comedian, and I'm gonna call her, and so she's gonna work for me, and she really had a good work ethic, even though, in stature she was amateur, but in her practice she's professional, and all this. Since he's going through it, and he's talking about the first time he lets her open for him, and he said that she just failed, like for like 45 minutes. He said she just bombed, and that, then but she was a good sport about it, whatever. She gets off stage, and then he goes to work, and, the crowd's whatever, they're loving it, of course. But then he said she got drunk, and she's just like chatting it up with him. And he was like, she was talking to me like like someone would talk to their TV at home. And he's like, well, it doesn't really bother me because we're friends and I know her. And then someone in the back of the room is like, hey, and is like really like nasty towards her and is like, do the carpets match the drapes or whatever? And she's like, and then he's like, no, she said, she turned around and was like, I have hardwood floors or something, like, I don't have carpets, I have hardwood floors. And she cracks the rump, and then they have this wholesome experience. And then afterwards she's cracking everybody up, and, no, during that. So then she keeps on going and they keep going back and forth. And then he said by the end of it, he's like, I don't really he's like, I just don't know what the hell you're even talking about. And then he said her like expression changed and she got real serious and was like, I don't need you to understand me or know what the hell I'm talking about. I just need you to believe that I'm having a human experience and that I'm going through it. And like that, I thought was like really powerful. Like I really felt like, I mean, I felt like tearing up. Like it's like, cause you get it. Like that's what it's about. Like, no, you don't have to like know every single pronoun. You don't have to understand all these other, like, you don't have to know what the definitions of all these things are. You just need to understand that you're both like sharing a human experience. And I thought that was like really pretty powerful.
It is.
Like, I thought that was a really like wholesome message. And who's like, if he's such a terrible person, he's this transphobe, like and you're worried about the audience that this stuff is reaching. Well, all those people that are watching that are supposedly like maybe transphobe too, or maybe they're a bunch of conservatives or whatever they are, they just got that message. Like whether they got it, they got it subconsciously, and like they heard him say it. Like the way he delivered it was pretty powerful, and so yeah. I don't know, I thought there was stuff like that was like snuck in there a lot that made it seem to me, from my perspective, that I thought overall this is a good thing. And it's kind of painful to see him be like, you know what, I'm done with you, because the opposite of like love is not hate, it's indifference, like, so it's kind of like that thing where you have like a coach, and it's like, if the coach isn't giving you any advice, that's when you should be worried. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing poorly and you're making mistakes, that's when you should be worried, because maybe the coach doesn't really care about whether or not you whatever. Like, that's kind of how I'm looking at it, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, absolutely. And I think that was really a powerful thing for him to share. So a part of what I'm getting at, and I'll be honest, like the first time I listened through the special, I got really fucking baked. I'm a stoner. And I was laughing at a lot of the jokes, and I did feel that emotional power in that moment, because that's something that I try to articulate to people a lot who come into my stream and they say, I don't get your they them pronouns. I don't get it. I even had to have this conversation with my mother, and I said, you don't have to get it. You don't have to understand me. You just have to respect me. But
yeah,
and that is a very powerful first step. I think what's frustrating and painful is that when I'm in that place, when I'm saying that thing, I am asking for the bare minimum respect that I hope we can give everyone. And I think there's like a tension, and I don't want this to come off as dismissive, because I think that moment is powerful. It's emotionally powerful. It's this moment where we can see each other and we can see each other honestly. And I can remind you, like, our differences are not as intense as you think. And we're all looking for that same basic respect that a lot of trans people aren't getting. That moment resonated with me, because I have that moment a lot when I turn and I say, hey, look, it's this simple. It's this simple. And so I appreciate that moment with you too. And I was there with you on that too. 100%. Now, I don't think Dave is a bad person. And one of the things I think, for me, and I think a lot of other people as well, is when we're calling out someone for damaging behavior, and in this case, transphobia, it's not about whether that person is a good or bad person. And I mean that very sincerely. Like my brother-in-law he says really fucked up things. I love him. I love him. But I think that that's something about the beauty of people is they are really complex and that they have parts of them that they'll go and they'll do these beautiful things. And then they have times that they hurt people. You know, I'm sure you've had a moment in your life where you've hurt someone. I've definitely had that moment. And I was laughing along. I even laughed so fucking hard about the joke about non-binary people. They, them pronouns. He had one joke in there about non-binary people. And I laughed because it was like, and I even felt a little bit of joy because it was like, we don't get recognition a lot.
Yeah, the talking about the one that was like they're after you, and he's like, how many days? That's funny. Like,
so it is funny, and I laughed because of the recognition and that it was funny. But then again, like it's also, I think the second time through it doesn't hit as much because a lot of my experience is people just challenging me on that, saying you can't have they, them pronouns. Like that's plural. Isn't that plural? Even my sister asked me that, though she didn't do it in the way most people do.
Yeah.
And so it's like mixed feelings. And it does feel sometimes like the one joke, you know?
But I just feel like that's the point of it though. Like I think that was kind of his goal was to ride that line the whole way through in a professional way, in a way that can include, you know, some of that stuff and like he can include such a powerful message like that and recognize and be like, give recognition to the community and be like, look, man, I'm an ally. I feel like that's what he's like saying. Like, I'm an ally, but like this is the absurdity of like, you know, cannibalizing one of your own, so to speak. And like, to me, it really seemed like also he was saying like, because I've watched it like 3 or 4 times now, and I went back through and took notes because I tried to do like the book smarts approach. I don't know if you know who book smarts is, but he's a guy who comes and criticizes. Well, I found him because of Destiny, and he comes and criticizes Destiny on his rhetoric all the time. Mm-hmm. And he says when he goes through like some of these debates or whatever, that he tries to watch it through, especially if it's like I don't know, if it's like a socialism versus capitalism or something like that. He'll try to come through and watch it as like, he watches it from his own biases, and he tries to go back and watch it and say, like, what if I was the other side? What if I was this side that was being critiqued? Okay, now what if I put myself in the other side at like the attacking position and the defending position or whatever? Like, so I've tried to do that and go through, and I don't know.
What did you come up with for understanding his transphobia?
Like, I mean, I think the turf thing is definitely not a good one. But at the same time, he even admits that he is invested in gender. He says it. He says, I'm invested in gender, the construct of gender. And he goes through the whole trouble of making this analogy. He tells a story about the guy, the freed slave from South Carolina, that basically once he got freed, he was given a plot of land by his former slave owner or his master or whatever. And then he ends up like selling the land, getting a bunch of money, and then buying slaves, and then he starts breeding slaves. Mm-hmm. And it's because this was the construct at the time. This is just what you did to be successful. Like mm-hmm. It was just an afterthought later that now we can look back on, like hindsight, and be like, damn, that's pretty messed up. Like that's pretty crazy that someone would go and like buy and breed and enslave their own people like that, you know. But at the time, that was just how you were successful. And so he admits that he has these faults and he has these biases, and that he's invested in the construct of gender.
What does it mean when he says he's invested in the construct of gender?
I guess like what I would, you know, because we're both trying to analyze what he's thinking, I guess. But like I think he's just speaking on more of like the traditional way that, you know, how things have been. There's a man and a woman, and women, you know, go through experiences that men can't experience, and vice versa. And that, I mean, and that being, you know, that these some behaviors, I guess, maybe attributed to these roles aren't always a bad thing. I guess maybe like, because I feel some of that same way too, because I grew up like pretty like Christian conservative, and I see that side of it that because I still feel like there's a benefit to the construct of gender to some degree, but
So when
I
are you referencing when
sorry,
he
but I just wanted to say, but even then, even when he says that, he's like, but that doesn't mean that not another perspective exists, because obviously going later on, we realize that, that was probably a pretty bad thing to do for that person to go back and, then enslave their people or whatever. Like,
hmm So so in that example that you're giving, can we acknowledge like, yeah, maybe that that individual Black man that engaged in that, as well as all of the slave owners, do we agree that maybe that perspective was bad? And
yeah,
it might have been
absolutely.
good to step out of that. And
Yeah.
so when you compare that to your current perspective of, and I'm also confused. I don't remember him saying like he's invested in the construct of gender. Are you referencing?
No, he said it word for word. Yeah.
Oh, he did. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I don't. I remember him saying.
I just finished watching it again, like earlier
Okay.
too. So
Okay. No. I'll trust you on that. I've been planning on rewatching it because I'm going to be having a panel unpacking the
mhm.
transphobia in it, and then also the discussions on race and how disappointed I am that he can't understand how oppression, like it seems like he understands how racism functions, but he's
Yeah.
not catching how transphobia does. Now, being invested in the construct of gender, um, that's its whole own thing, but I still think you can acknowledge like the way that he played into like overemphasizing constantly the biology, and reinforcing this idea that like in that particular moment, it's playing into this idea that trans women are dangerous. Like some of these things are tropes that are used again and again and again against trans people to justify excluding them from the restrooms. So he does this thing where he plays into those narratives while then turning and saying like, oh, I support them not having that legislation. And it's like, again, I'm glad that you did this thing where you can acknowledge our rights that need to be there, but then you're still playing into these narratives and you're still really going after these like it's a just this hyper focus on that biology. And then also my frustration with the straw manning of, which is another problem with TERFs, the straw manning of what trans people are saying, because they'll say things like, well, gender is real. I don't know what you mean by that. A lot of TERFs end up going into this like, well, I'm just saying sex is real, which is what a lot of TERFs like they'll say.
Well,
and trans people, I don't know if anyone's been listening, but gender dysphoria is that whole, it's not a body dysmorphia, it's dysphoria. We're acutely aware of our biology, and that's a part of what gives that gender dysphoria. So it feels like you're straw manning, you're belittling the problems with TERFs. And I think there does need to be a conversation with TERFs. I have a bit of empathy for TERFs. I almost became a TERF, but I understood that it came from a fundamental misunderstanding of trans people. And so I think one of my frustrations is I understand that there are these deep moments. And I'm not saying he's a horrible person, though I do think he could have grown more. And I think his defensiveness is preventing him from being able to do that. And he's been lashing. A lot
I
of it
actually
does
would
seem
agree
like.
with that. I think he's grieving. Yeah. I think he's pretty pissed off right now.
Do you think that it's appropriate for him to reinforce transphobia and his lashing out? Because I think that's one of the.
But I just don't know if that's really the full intention though, because at the end of the day, he is a comedian and I think he is trying to make people laugh. Like
I'm not worried. I would agree his intention is good. I'm not worried about his intention. That's not what my argument stems on at all.
I know. I'm trying to touch on like what you were saying earlier about like basically other people. You're worried about or it seemed like you were worried about other people like co-opting or like taking some of the things that he's saying and running with them basically in the wrong direction. And that's just a problem I feel like that every comedian faces, because like you even have he's done some pretty like racist comedy in the past. He did the whole like N-word family thing, and then even like people like Chris Rock did the difference. There's a difference between an N-word and a black person, and did that joke. And it's like, yeah, I think they understand that racists are going to take that and run with it, especially the N-word with versus a black person one. Something like that is pretty racist. But it's like at the end of the day, they're trying to provide comedy for that. Comedy is for the black audience, not for a bunch of racists. And I think that's kind of the problem that he's facing with this stuff. I think he wanted to bring comedy to the LGBT community, wanted to include them, but like that's just kind of like a byproduct that's going to happen. Like racist people and transphobic people or hateful people are going to take anything they can wherever they can get it.
So that's not my concern, actually. It's that people already do believe these things, and he's playing into the same tropes that. So when I talk about oppression, there are narratives and tropes pushed about groups of people. And in pushing those narratives and tropes, that's what we call of one of the four eyes of oppression. So you have the ideology that's going to be behind the institutions, which are like your laws, right? But it's also the things that the church might say, the things that the schools do to reinforce it. Then you have your interpersonal, which is what a lot of people think about. And then you have your internalized. And it's the narratives that he pushes, the narratives that he reinforces that, trans women are this way. And it's just the same narratives in his comedy over and over again, while downplaying the TERFs and the damage of TERFs, and even saying, and I think you conceded on this point, and I'm glad that you acknowledge that that's pretty unfortunate, because it's the major hate group that's doing a lot of damage to us.
I also don't think he knows like what TERFs really are though either.
That's a huge problem. And so that's where we're saying these things, and it's not an attack on his intent, though I am disappointed in the amount of, like, if you're doing a whole comedy skit and a point, you're going to say, I'm a TERF. Yeah. I'm like a Twitch streamer that doesn't make 20 something million off of my thing. And I still feel responsibility enough that if I'm going to speak on something, I should know a little more deeply what it is, especially if I'm going to boldly say, I am this thing as like an edgy thing. And his audience is huge. My audience, I have 100 something viewers right now, right? His audience is going to be gigantic, and he makes a fuck ton of money off of this. He's been in the
top 10 for Netflix since the special came out.
So it's
trending every day. So I get it.
Yeah. And I'm not going after him as a person, though I am disappointed in how he's acting here. And the more I've dug into it, the more he's been called out for this. And he even acknowledged that in the special. So it's like, if you've been called out for this, I understand comedy is art. But I think that the most beautiful art brings, if you're gonna do a specific topic, especially a topic that you've been called out for not knowing on and hurting people on, especially as a large creator that's making like 20 million off this one special, can you please do a little research and knowledge into it before you reinforce these damaging ideas and associate yourself and play with this idea of the main hate group that is doing damage to that group. Like, I felt welcomed a little bit with the they them joke until I'm like listening to the things that he's saying about trans women. And then I'm like, honestly, I was talking to one of my friends afterwards, and I was talking about there were, what were some of the points? There was just a lot of references to the biology. Oh, it was the impossible pussy comment. Holy shit.
That one was all there, but I thought that was funny. I don't know.
Honestly, I think it would have been fucking hilarious if not for in that context.
Yeah.
If not, So no.
Yeah,
If
because
a
I guess,
trans
because he led
if
into
a
that.
trans woman would have made that comment, fucking golden. But it's you're making comedy on a group that you didn't take the time to research the hate group that you're associating yourself with.
Yeah.
Right? You're
Yeah, I think that
reinforcing
part was
all of
bad.
these things. And yeah, I understand the impossible pussy thing could have been hilarious, but not in that context.
Yeah.
It's not in that context. And honestly, there's a really incredible, her name is Dahlia. She's going to be joining us, on Saturday. She is she's a Black trans comedian that wrote a thing for The Guardian. And she actually did a bit of a thing responding to that, the whole beet juice kind of joke on her Twitter. I might shoot, or on her Instagram. I might shoot it over to you because I found it really insightful as someone who I just don't know the intro. Yeah, I'll send it over to you. Do you have the Jay, do you happen to have her Instagram? Dahlia Bell, really interesting. But she did a little thing on specifically trans women's vaginas and the whole process around that. There's a lot to that, but it's like, I guess it's frustrating when there's so much confusion around these things that you're getting it from a comedian that are, and I understand why it's happening, but you're getting it from a comedian who's playing into a lot of tropes that are awful, associating with those things, that the TERFs, and downplaying that and not understanding that. And then the bit of conversation we have around this, I feel like it's not bridging the gap in a good way, because I think he could have done it in a good way, but it just didn't. Those things make it reinforces the things we're already struggling with in society, and that makes it hurtful, you know?
I mean, yeah, I think it was just like maybe his lack of the understanding of just the turd thing really threw a lot of people off. And I think that if he understood that, maybe he would have constructed that differently. But I think there is like an absurdity to like, I think he's just trying to play into that absurdity of like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, yep, me, Dave Chappelle, the transphobe, sure. Because you even saw like heard him making like cracking jokes like that the whole time. Like whenever he's like, yeah, and she dressed up, she looked really good, and every time she showed up, when he was talking right before he was talking about that story, and he's like, yeah, she showed up, she was always really professional, and she dressed to the nines, and even me, a transphobe, was like, dang, you look pretty good, like, and he kept cracking jokes like that, like the whole time, like, so I don't know if I don't know.
I think that he doesn't see himself as transphobic. And he thinks that's absurd. But then when we.
But he also referred to her. Sorry, because I forgot. I was just going to add to the end, because the whole time he's referring to her as she, and with like pronouns through the whole thing until he makes that like one joke at the end.
Yeah, and
so,
I don't know.
And it's like, I don't know. It seems like if he was really trying to like hammer it home, like he wouldn't even have bothered and all this.
Yeah, if he was not deflecting, and if he wanted to just be literally Ben Shapiro. Yeah, of course. But the thing is, I don't think that it's like it's a spectrum, right? You've got your out transphobes who understand they're transphobes and are going to double down on your transphobia. I don't think that's Dave Chappelle. I think Dave Chappelle is working on ignorance, and then also a frustration and a lack of just educating himself on these issues. And it comes out in him hurting communities.
Yeah, I even said, because I used to, I refer to my former self before I was educated on some of these things. I was like trans hesitant because I just didn't understand any of these things. I didn't hate those people, or I didn't like, I mean, it wasn't a goal for me to go out and like end these people or destroy these people and make fun of them. But I definitely didn't understand it at all. And it didn't make sense to me. And like, it's not that I didn't want to, but it's just I didn't. So there was a point where I was just like, yeah, this shit doesn't fucking make sense to me. Like, but it's not like I was going to go out of my way and go join the turfs or go, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think a lot of people are in that position. And I think for those, I think that's probably the target audience plus the LGBT community that maybe he was trying to reach. Like, and I don't think it was to bring a message of like hate. I still feel like it was to bring a message of understanding to some degree, but it was, I feel like, to bring a message of understanding to like both audiences. I think because you have such powerful messages like that. Like, I don't need you to understand me. I just need you to believe that I'm having a human experience. Like that was pretty powerful. And when he delivered that, like, he has to make jokes to interject on the seriousness of some of the stuff that he's talking about at certain points in there. And I don't know. I feel like he went at both sides to some degree, like bringing that message, like, you know, of trans people just needing to needing to believe that they're having a human experience, and the reverse, that like this is kind of crazy, like at the end, and he's like, I just stop. And he's like, just stop punching down on my people or whatever. Like, let comedians, you know, make jokes about the world that they see and the things that they understand or maybe don't understand, like, without it having to always be like malice and bad intentions, and everybody needs to be canceled as soon as they say something that maybe they didn't mean it. It might not even be a case where, like, you know, because I've had this happen to me before when I like talking to some of my trans friends, like, and I ask a question and it's a genuine question, but it's like it can be misinterpreted in the wrong way, and they're like, what, like, why would you ask me something like that, or da da da. And I'm like, it's a real question. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like, I'm not trying to, like, you know. So, and people get that crossfire a lot too. Like, people who are trying to understand get, you know, this mob after them because they just ask a question, and maybe social media isn't the place for like any of the definitely isn't the place for any of that to be happening at all. But
yeah. So again, I want to reiterate, like, that's why it's shocking to me. Like, to me, when you are learning and you're trying to learn about these things, he's doing it, I guess, in a way where he's not doing the research, and he's making 20K or 20, what was it? 20 million on this one special.
Yeah. I have no
and
idea.
I don't know that that's the space to do it. Right. Cause I'm a creator and I get nervous. Right. But why do you think people get angry? Why do you think they see that? Because I want to reiterate, I'm not arguing about his intent. I'm not, and this is something I think gets lost in translation a lot. Lot is, I don't care that it was not your intent to hurt someone. I'm trying to explain to you why it did hurt someone, right? And what we get oftentimes is people saying, well, that wasn't my intent. That wasn't my intent. And then I reiterate, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're a bad person. And that's why I think conversations on racism, conversations on transphobia, conversations on sexism, they get pushed to the side because people are very focused on that intent and being focused on having the right to ask these questions. When it's like, sometimes I've had that question asked to me so many times, I'm tired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I hear you in saying, I get timid asking these questions. I do. I hear you on that. I get timid sometimes too. But I think I've come to a point where the reason I'm timid is I understand people's exhaustion and their hurt and their frustration. And I think Dave Chappelle would understand that too. And maybe he would say, like, they need to get stronger or something. I don't know what he would say, but maybe he would understand if he sat down. I would love to sit down and talk to Dave Chappelle, by the way. I think, you know, if he can ease up on his defensiveness, he would learn so much and it would be incredible. And maybe he'd come out and make the fucking funniest jokes and elevate trans women, funny ass trans women, you know, and it would be beautiful for everyone. But we get so hyper focused on this canceling. We get so hyper focused on, you think my intent is bad, rather than, well, what happened here? And I think when we're addressing oppression, if you've seen someone get hit over and over and over again, if you understand that Black people have what percentage of wealth compared to white people, it's absurd. in this country, like
Yeah.
you start to understand, oh, it makes sense that they're angry. And it makes sense that the trans community is angry because Lumi goes through their life with, before I came out as non-binary and understood what that was, I get along with people. Like, and I don't mean it, but it's just like I grew up being pressed into the role of womanhood. I tried to do that very well. So I have some social skills and I tend to get along with people. But now I have to make this decision. Do I introduce myself as who I authentically am? Or do I ignore that and feel that pain throughout the conversation and that discomfort? Or do I introduce myself and get that moment where I don't know if someone's going to dismiss me? And it's that pain that's reinforced when people are dismissing my gender. Or it didn't happen with this particular Chappelle joke because I was so shocked it was happening on such a large platform and we don't get a lot of recognition. But it's like, it's that pain and that frustration that's boiling up there. And I understand it can be scary because I get scared sometimes too. But I think understanding where it's coming from is so important. And when you understand it, suddenly, to me, it looks, it's frustrating because I can understand that fear and I can understand the pain and where it's coming from. And I have to decide, what do I do with that understanding? And it gets frustrating because I want to say, hey, I understand your fear about asking these questions. But if you come to someone like me that is out here willing to educate and asking you, hey, I would love to have this conversation with you. And I would, Jessie Gender, I know would. Like, there are trans people out there that would have this conversation. You don't have to be scared. Just stop going out and reinforcing these tropes and ignoring us and then antagonizing us and doing another special and then doing another special and then doing another special where you double down. That to me is frustrating and hurtful. And that's where I start wondering about either intention or maturity, because it takes a real emotional strength to say, maybe I did fuck up. Maybe it's not my intent that matters, but what I'm actually doing and the impact it has. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, I didn't see his other specials like leading up to this, so I don't really know. I mean, I've seen clips from all of them, I think, but I mean, even in this one, like, which I guess it doesn't matter how long, but it was just like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of like my frustrations aren't necessarily with someone like you who can give, like, can be understanding of the position that he's in or whatever, but more so a lot of the reactionaries, and unfortunately a lot of the reactionaries that didn't even watch the thing, they just know one clip, they just know literally just in a headline, so they don't know how it was delivered, how it was set up, how anything about anything. They just heard that something was said, like they just heard beet juice, or they just heard like I'm team turf, and they didn't hear like the 7 punchlines he set up after that. And I get that he obviously doesn't understand what turfs are, but like that's more of like been my frustration too. And like, yeah, when saying stuff about like him getting canceled or whatever, like I can concede that, yeah, he's not canceled by any means, but it's just speaking more in generalities of like how like a lot of these people are not always. I think a lot of the people don't always mean like that, don't always have bad intentions, that shit can go sideways. Like stuff like I didn't know anything about the DeBebe thing. I looked that up, and that seems pretty egregious. And then I guess there's these things going around, these memes going around of like the four horsemen of rappers in hell or whatever it was called, something, because I guess these guys all came out to start supporting DeBebe, and basically they were pretty like, they were saying like some things that were pretty hateful towards like the LGBT community or whatever. He's like, one of the guys was like, if I see some guy, they were talking about what's that guy's name? The guy who was getting everybody pissed off with his music videos and stuff. I forget. Everybody was
what
talking
direction
about.
Was he getting? He's
getting conservatives really pissed off about
Lil Nas X.
Yeah, Lil
our
Nas.
king, our
and
Lord
they were
and Savior.
And they were saying that like, oh, if I see Lil Nas, dancing on stage, like I'd take that, I'd take him out back and I'd beat his ass or whatever. Like, obviously that's different. Like, obviously that person, made their intentions and the way they feel about this person like pretty damn clear. And I think that's what really irritates me, is that when people can get so bent out of shape out of obviously what's not a really clear message. Like, if you listen to what he's saying in there and you hear him say stuff like, like, if you listen to what I'm saying, you'll, because he talks about his other specials too. And he's like, if you listen to what I'm saying, I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about us, and they don't listen. And he's like, he's irritated that he's being misunderstood. Like, and it's pretty obvious that he doesn't understand stuff like what the hell a turf is, and he doesn't understand to some degree. So there's a difference between, like, getting mad at someone or canceling someone who's very clearly, it's really obvious that person that said that, I can't remember which rapper it was, that said like they beat Lil Nas's ass or whatever. That's pretty clear. They made their intentions clear. But for him to, I feel like, especially in this stand up, it wasn't like a clear, definitive, like, oh yeah, he hates all trans people. Like, that's not, you can't, there's no way to draw that or come to that conclusion, I think, for anybody. And I know that you're not in this position, so I'm not even really.
Yeah, no,
like,
I'm actually.
To you at this point, it's more like just a general thing that I've been seeing. It's kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. And I think I relate to that to a degree as a streamer when you get clipped and it goes around. But I think one of the things, I guess I feel a variety of things. I think back to a few of my community members who step out when I go on panels, or they step out. I've had people step out because they're like, I just can't hear more transphobia. I just can't do it. And then and I've struggled with this a little bit myself. I'm like, well, what's the good solution? And I'll come out and say, I really don't like. I feel really conflicted on this, because a part of me says, like, if you can't watch the thing and you can't deeply critique it, back off. But then I think there are statements in it to a degree that you can start recognizing, okay, this is transphobic. Okay, this is playing into the same narratives, and it's just very frustrating. And then the additional thing is, because some people will say, well, just don't listen to his special. If it's like hurting you that much, don't listen to it. But I think that there's still a compulsion to respond to it because of how big his platform is. And I think this is something I experienced, like, in regards to our platform, when some of the larger creators are saying things about non-binary people, or they're going after titty streamers, or they're going after whoever. Like, even if you don't listen to it, and you don't want to listen to it, it's going to impact you. So there's almost like a level of, I want to be able to say something on this, even if I don't want to sit through this thing that's going to break my heart again. Like, that's still going to be perpetuated,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, it's just as, I think about it in the terms of because like politics, for example, like, I might have to listen to a bunch of shit from somebody that I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I do it because I want to try to understand this side, or at the very least, I want to be able to critique the positions like correctly, and not be, sounding like a jackass when I come onto a panel and like don't even know what the hell, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, I guess I can see what you're saying. Like, you wouldn't want to go through it if you really feel like this is attacking you. But
So,
yeah, I guess I would just say that there's only like, I think there's like maybe half an hour total of him talking about or setting up jokes that have something to do with like the LGBT community, and then I think there's like 15 to maybe, I think it's like 15 solid minutes and maybe 20 of like specifically just like trans stuff. But I mean, it's an hour-long special, so I don't know. He cracks jokes right at the beginning. He cracks jokes about. He talks about like he makes a joke about where he's the character of getting sexually assaulted as a child. Like, I was sexually assaulted as a child. Like, it's a funny joke. Like,
I think
there's some cringe to it. Like, we shouldn't downplay, like, that's a serious thing, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. But I understand. I think I think I want to go back to
I think maybe I didn't make a point clear. So
No, because to be clear, like I don't think I'm arguing against you at this point really anymore. Because I think you understand like where I'm coming from. I guess I just trying to like make I don't know myself clear, I guess, or something. So
I gotcha. Well, I think you have good intentions, and I really appreciate it, especially on the panel. I was just watching. I notice you have a lot of empathy, and you can tap in and follow those emotions. And with Dave, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see you being able to empathize with why this could hurt people as well, because I think that's the struggle. Is I feel like trans people are saying, yeah, you can hear this perspective of his, but it's really hurting the way those things damage us. And the point I did want to clarify is the reason that a lot of trans people feel attacked is because it's like, my mom I can't talk to because she thinks I'm awful for being non-binary, and she's super freaked out. I got a surgery related to it. She's fucked up about it. She's made it all about herself. And it's like, I think it's a little different from and I think you recognize this already. It's a little different from a political perspective. Yeah. Because it's like, when I say attacking, it is very attacking in the sense of, a lot of our parents rejected us. I have at least one trans person in my community that could not come out because their partner of a long time was awful about it. One of them lost one of their partners because they're just massively transphobic. And again, I don't think it's bad for you to realize like, oh, it's hard for me to understand because I love the person for who they are. And so I don't fully grasp that, but I guess it's frustrating because of the very personal ways these narratives impact our lives. But thank you sincerely for listening. I appreciate that. And
thanks for staying up late to talk to me. I'm sorry to keep you up, I guess.
No, you should be
or saying to keep you streaming longer, but
sorry to my dog because she's sleeping on the couch, so I don't think she cares.
Just give her a treat. She'll be fine.
Okay, I will. She's got these really good birthday cake ones in the fridge. She is eating the most decadent foods right now. So
oh, nice. She's living the American dream on that couch.
She is. Oh God. I don't know if it's the American dream, but it's the dream for sure.
The doggy dream, yeah.
The doggy dream. But anyway, thank you. Is there anything else? And by the way, if you do have questions, I can't speak on all trans issues, quite frankly. But non-binary issues, I can speak from my perspective. So if you have questions, you can DM me or you can, Yeah,
I sent you a friend request.
Oh, did you on Discord?
Yeah, because I tried to send you a message to ask about the like having a chat because I didn't want to ask you like in the stream, but it wouldn't let me send one.
Oh, well, thank you for being...
Because we're not friends.
Yeah. I used to go on the Raj Royale. Not sure if you're familiar. He's Austin now, but...
Yeah, I do know the Raj Royale.
It was so weird. The thing I would get harassed most for... Guess. Any guesses on what I'd get harassed for?
I
you don't know me well enough. No, veganism. Of all of the things, like people would meme on me in his chat for being a feminist, for having colored hair, for being non-binary. They'd make fun of me. But the worst things that I get, people would send me like intensely violent things on Discord regarding animals because I was vegan. Asshole.
Oh, man. Oh, they would send you like violent things? That's kind of messed up.
Yeah, really fucked up things regarding animals.
I was laughing because I thought you meant like people on Raj were like teasing you about being vegan. I'm like, yeah, well, that's kind of fun to do every once in a while. But no, that's kind
as long as I can make fun of you for being a dirty omnivore.
Hey, I'm trying to be a better omnivore, okay? I'm trying to I'm getting my hunting license and stuff this year, so I'm trying to be where What?
licensed murderer. Good job. Proud of you.
But if it's gonna come from somewhere, it should come from there, right? Like from I should be the one dealing with, killing an animal, thanking the animal, cleaning it, gutting it, going through the process, rather than it living in a cage, peeing through a grate in the floor its entire life, only to be slaughtered later for me.
Be said for that. So outside of that, are you reducing your meat intake then? Like, are you trying?
I'm doing my best.
Oh, nice. I'm doing my best. That's how you get me to say, I don't want to hear about your animal murder.
I try, man. Hey, I was vegan for like 3 years, I think. I watched a video in high school, like right out of high school, that was basically like a 2 or 3 hour documentary that talked about, and because I lived at the time in North Carolina. Now I'm in South Carolina, but I lived in North Carolina at the time, and pretty close to one of these areas. Like it was like an hour away or something, but like this area was like this big farm area, and they talked about how the animals are treated, and they show that basically they're literally just stuck in these little squares. There's a grated floor so that when they pee and poop, it can just be sprayed out down, and it goes outside, and there's this big lake of like urine and feces and fecal matter. It's disgusting. It's and then they take a truck and they pump it out every once in a while, and then they just go and spray it into the woods. And then the people that live nearby have like breathing issues and stuff, and develop all kinds of like ailments, and it gets swept under the rug because they can pay off the city and stuff like that to like basically like ignore or not regulate them. And it's just this whole mess. And I was like, holy shit, like I don't want to contribute to that. And I went vegan for like a full 3 years. So
why did you stop being vegan?
Because I was cooking. I'm a chef, and it's just like kind of unavoidable for a while. I mean, it still is. I mean, it's not unavoidable, but like, and it was expensive. That's the biggest thing.
This is bullshit. Eat beans and rice. That shit isn't expensive.
I did.
Tofu.
I did.
Oh, and tofu.
I ate so much beans and so much rice. I'm telling you. Okay, I was a good boy for like 3 years. All right.
All right, don't be
we're trying to work back there, okay? We're trying to work back there, okay?
All right, I'm very excited.
We told my wife and I, we talked about that we're both gonna go vegan and supplement a bunch before we get pregnant, because we want our baby to be strong and healthy.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect.
Yeah, so we're trying to cut out all of the chemicals before we get pregnant. So we'll be starting that probably in the next like 6 months. So no chemically processed anything.
Oh, that's going to be tough. That's going
to be almost impossible because I love sugar, but I can do it.
Because of sugar? Oh, I feel that.
Sugar is the most addictive, like legal drug that exists, okay? It's the worst for you.
It's got to either be that or caffeine.
It's so good.
But sugar is so pervasive.
Yeah. It seems nice too. It's just sweet, It can't hurt you. It's just sugar.
Sugar? Sweet? I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So have we concluded? Are we in agreement that even though Dave Chappelle might not have bad intentions, his special was still definitely had transphobia in it?
I mean, I don't think it's healthy for the discussion. I think, yeah. I don't even know what I guess transphobic necessarily means. I mean, by definition, I think it means like a fear of trans people, but I don't know if he's afraid of trans people. So
when I say transphobia, I mean reinforcing the oppression of trans people.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, I'll agree to that. Yeah.
Were you having a semantics argument with me? Did you just?
No, I just was actually thinking about it in my head, and I was like, I don't know if I know for sure what you mean by that.
Well,
when some people use like transphobic, they use it to mean like you hate trans people, like almost like a slur in a way. But like I guess that's a good slur. I don't know.
So let me transphobia as wait, what?
But not in it's just a word that people misuse, I think. I don't know.
Sometimes. I think a lot of, is it because they are angry when they're calling someone transphobic?
Probably, yeah.
Do you think they could be angry because they're saying you're reinforcing the oppression of my community or a community I care about?
If you said that instead of just throwing, I think the word loses some of its meaning, I guess.
I don't know.
I have this issue with a lot of words, though.
Yeah, words are hard, but I think that we can come to an understanding. I'll just tell you, my whole community, I actually teach here on Twitch. Like 101 on oppression. And when we are saying sexist, when we are saying racist, when we are saying transphobic, we're talking like this reinforces a systemic oppression of people. And that's why I'm mad.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the systemic racism thing. It's like if people just explained the thing that they think, what they think it's doing and how they think it leads to, the disproportionate outcomes for, one race or the other, whatever. That's probably a lot better than just throwing the word out because of how, people just have these knee-jerk reactions to these things because unfortunately a lot of people have thrown out all these terms all the time and they don't know what they mean. And then you get people who just kind of like, oh yeah, they're just saying all these words again. And if they really just took the time to like if you explain it to me like you explained it, then yeah, I agree with you. But if you just say transphobic, then I don't really, maybe, yes.
Why? I'm always so curious why people, and maybe it's the tone, but like if someone says something you don't understand, maybe just like, what do you mean?
Well, that's why I asked you, because I try to, yeah. So,
Did you ask me what I mean, or did you tell me the
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. I don't want to hammer you on this.
Well, that was my intention either way. Was
okay.
To get
all right.
a clear understanding of what you meant. But
and you can feel free to come and just ask. But whenever you hear me say something sexist, and by the way, I did debate review yesterday, but be warned, if you watch it, I was very honest in what I was seeing. And I straight up said Turk was being sexist. There were moments, there was one specific moment. I'm like, this is sexist. And I don't even know if he means it in a sexist way, but the impact is sexist, especially when you look at the panel. And so it's not, I'm like.
Wait, on the panel that we were on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wait, what happened?
He mocked my affect at a point. It's not like a super huge deal because my realization is did you hear there was a point where he said something like, I can't say this thing because my kids are still awake. And I swear I want to know what he was talking about, but it was related to the queer topic.
I didn't even hear that.
Homophobe? I heard it and I was like, this motherfucker, like this. So, but that's what I'm talking about is there is impacts in that.
Yeah.
And now let me be very clear. Of course, everyone is, as you are, everyone else is in their same learning area. And one of the things I've noticed is like,
I'm trying.
Yeah. So when I was a baby feminist, I was really people would have considered me really fucking cringe because I knew something was sexism, even though I'm still trying to articulate it. And so some people, they're just learning it themselves. And they're like, I see the thing. I can't explain it 100%. And so they are just like, that's sexism. And I wish that people would start acknowledging that these systemic oppressions exist and then start trying to say, well, what do you mean by that? And how can we get to that point? And just to be clear, this is why I teach Oppression 101. This is why I have just Sex and Gender 101 on my stream. And I even try to reel in people. I don't want to say people like you, but maybe people like you.
You can just say people like me.
Maybe
I think you would want to reach people like me. I try because I don't understand everything, but it's not out of a place of like, because I don't want to. It's just because I just don't.
Yeah, then you're probably exactly my target audience. And one of the ways I do that is I just put men in the title, and we talk about men for a whole stream and men's issues and men's liberation.
Yeah, you got me with the men's liberation. I was like, I have no idea what this is. I've never heard about this before, but I want to find out.
Yeah. But people see men and they're like, oh shit, this person with colored hair has men in their title. They show up a little fighty, and then we talk about men's lib. And it's kind of chef's kiss.
I like that. It's a little clickbait.
It is. It's the Loomy version of clickbait. I'm going to say men, and then you're going to get in here and we're going to be wholesome and it's going to be so good.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next men's liberation stream. I want to know what it's all about.
All right. We will catch
I
you
want to
then,
get
hopefully.
educated.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Nacho. And thanks for coming in and chatting about the whole Dave Chappelle thing.
Yep. All right.
You have
Thanks
a
for
lovely
chatting.
evening.
You too.
Poggers, that went well. That went well. Thank you so much. Yeah, I felt like Nacho was pretty, again, like Nacho and Biggs both seemed pretty like, all right, okay, all right. Sincere. Whereas y'all already heard it from me.